to family. Excuse me, this is giving you something to talk about, or just a live TV, as I like to call it. As you can tell, we are live and in charge. If you are catching the replay or watching us live, give us a like, follow, share, comment, get involved in the conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about getting unstuck. And I'm super excited for this episode. To do that, our episode today has been sponsored by Phoenix Identity. Get unstuck by learning how to control your emotions, because your life is waiting. Go and download the Embrace Your Positivity, the introduction to the Rockstar Method, link in the description. If at any point you want to get in touch with either myself or my guest speaker, you can comment while we're live, or you can reach out to us through our links, again, in the description of this episode. So I'm going to hand it over to my guest speaker to introduce themselves. Sophie, would you like to do the honors?
Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. So thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. And yes, let's get started. So my name is Sophie K. I'm a vitality coach, and I'm actually based in Auckland, New Zealand, which you can probably hear by my funny accent. So what do? My genius zone lies in helping people get unstuck in their life and where they are right now. So most of my clients find themselves running on a treadmill, find themselves just going through the motions, and joy and the fun and, the amazingness of life just seems to pass them by. And what I help them do is really figure out what thriving means to them, what thriving actually looks like to them. How do they do that? And what are some of the things that they need to do along the way? What are some of the things that they need to let go of? And some of the habits and ways of thinking and ways of being that they need to change in order to be able to hit that thrive space. And, the reason why I landed in this line of work was because of my own realization that for a lot of my adult life, I spent my time just going through the motions. And I realized when I separated from the father of my children, which was a huge wake-up call, that life hadn't been, it'd been fun, it'd been okay, but had it been as fun and extraordinary as I actually deep down wanted it to be? No, it hadn't. So I started to ask myself those really hard questions. And when I discovered what thriving and what happiness really looks like to me, I realized this is just too good to be, this is just too good to keep it to myself. I needed to pass this on to other people. This way of discovering for yourself. It's absolutely possible for everybody to thrive and to live a life that really gets them excited. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to spread this message that you too can thrive, that you get to thrive, in fact, that you deserve to thrive. And no matter where you are in life, there are certain things that you can do. That life is yours to decide on how you're going to live it. And there's certain things that you can do to get yourself unstuck right now. And I'm excited to be here to be able to share that with you and to have this beautiful conversation with you today, Melissa.
Absolutely. And we all kind of go through that motion. What do I want? What do I need? How many of you watching or catching the replay, how many of you have sat there and questioned yourself? Is there more? What am I missing? Or feeling like you are just going through the motions? How many times do we do that, where we're just like day in and day out, it's the same routine, and you get sick of it, or if you feel stuck in it, especially when you're married and you have children, you're stuck in a career, or maybe you're getting older. I know even my own husband, he's like, I don't want to start all over again, right? With career-wise. And he was in a place that was making him really unhappy. And I kept telling people, and I've met many people, various different ages, it doesn't matter what stage or age you're at. You have the capability, you have the power to change your life. Is it going to impact others? Yeah. If you have a family, if you have children, if you have a partner, absolutely, it'll impact them. But it's not about hurting them. It's not about, uprooting their entire lives. It's about having that discussion of, we have to put ourselves first. And when we put ourselves first, we can sit down and have that discussion, right? If you're married and you're feeling like, it's dull and you've tried all these different things to spice it up, but it's just not feeling it anymore, have that conversation and go, I'm really not happy. And we don't do that enough. We don't have that conversation of, I'm not happy.
Yes, absolutely. And see, the biggest realization that I had for me, Melissa, was when I was in that unhappy place, and my ex-partner was in that unhappy place too, it had a severe impact on our children, on the people around us. You being unhappy on a personal level actually impacts people around you, and it makes life less enjoyable for them too, because the people that love us, they actually want to see us happy. They want to see us thrive. They want to see us doing well. They want to see us smile and get up every day and have fun and do what really lights us up. And so I think, when my clients start this journey, this is often a realization that they have, that the stakes are much, much higher than just their own happiness. It's actually that ripple effect on everybody else. And you're absolutely right. There is so much shame and guilt around admitting that we're unhappy, that things aren't going the way we actually want them to, that maybe our career isn't what we thought it is, maybe that, some of the decisions that we've made have led us to this point where we're now actually not feeling it. We're feeling unhappy. And, I just want to say that there doesn't need to be any shame or guilt around that, because tell you what, at one point or another in our lives, everybody goes through such a stage. And that stage, when you hit that stage, and I know that in the moment it doesn't feel good, and I know that there's a lot of emotions and feelings coming up for us, but the reality is that those moments are actually a gift. They're a gift for us to be able to look at and figure out what's working for us and what isn't working for us, and let go of what isn't working and really start gearing more towards what is working. Those moments are a gift. Again, they don't feel like it in the moment, but they really are. And, and it's so beautiful to see when people have that realization, because it re-energizes them and it makes them realize, actually, this is amazing. I now get to decide and then get to go on this adventure of discovering myself and where I want to go. There are so many opportunities out there, but if you feel like you have failed, that is a very different energy to live your life from. It's a lot harder, and actually has to do with the way our brain works. So if we're in survival mode and stress mode and fear mode, it's actually the two back parts of our brain that get activated. And when those two parts of our brains are activated, then we cannot take voluntary action. We cannot problem solve. We cannot see opportunities because we are stuck in survival mode. And many of my clients, when they come to me, they are stuck in that. So it makes it really hard for them to go, I know I want things to be different, but I just don't know how. So the first thing that you have to do is get yourself unstuck out of that survival mode, so you can engage your prefrontal cortex, which is the only part of our brain that actually allows us to take voluntary action, the part that actually allows us to create, new solutions, to problem solve, to be able to take that voluntary action to changing our lives. So in order to get unstuck, we have to get out of that survival mode first. And there is a few sort of techniques that people can do, even in their everyday life, in their home. And it is a bit of a process, but it's so absolutely worth it. And that's when the magic really starts to happen. It's quite exciting, really.
And like you mentioned, there is that failure aspect to it.
Yes.
And anybody, when you're trying to get unstuck and you're trying to make those changes, it's okay to feel that way. It's a natural process of things. Society has taught us in the last 10 years. I've been coaching for the last 10 years. And when I started coaching, the toxic positivity movement was really coming up and being like, oh, you have to be positive all the time and no negativity and remove it. And I call bullshit. Pardon my language, but I call bullshit. And I fought against that. And I was rejected and ridiculed because I fought against that, because I said those negative experiences, those negative feelings are actually your teachers. Those are your lessons. Those are the things that say, hey, this isn't right. You're not happy. Where are we going from here? That's what creates the change. So when you're going through that process, and this is something I teach in the Rockstar method, is you need to control those emotions. Number one, recognize how you feel. So if you're feeling like a failure. If you're feeling upset, if you're feeling stuck, acknowledge that you're feeling that and say, this is how I feel. That's the first step. When you start to acknowledge those feelings, you start to take control of them. They don't control you anymore. And so you feel the failure and you say, well, I feel like a failure because, you know, my marriage didn't work out, or this career didn't work out, or my, you know, what I promised my kids didn't work out, whatever that looks like. And then you're like, hey, well, I feel like a failure, but I'm not. I'm not happy. And again, we don't realize, and we're not taught, that our level of happiness, or our happiness in general is a very individual, unique thing. Nobody in this world is responsible for your happiness except for yourself. So if you're responsible for your happiness, now when you're a kid, that's totally different. You definitely are. They don't know that, but they are responsible for their own happiness. But think about kids. If you're in a relationship and you're not happy in that relationship, if you're cranky all the time, or you're not happy, and that is, like you said, impacting the rest of your family, as children, they take that on, right? Your partner will take that on, and then they feel like it's their responsibility, because we have this misconception that our happiness is tied to other people, and it's not. While having my husband in my life makes me happy, he pisses me off just as much when he gets, like, this morning. He's like, oh, I just want to snuggle with my wife. I'm like, don't touch me. Like, it's first thing in the morning and I'm crabby. Leave me alone, right? He's like, but I just want to snuggle. I'm like, no, I love you, but back off, right? And like, I mean, yes, does he get like, why can't I snuggle? What, you know, like, I mean, obviously he internalizes it, but at the same time, it's like, it's nothing to do with you. It's, I don't want to, like, first thing in the morning or last thing at night, I'm not a friendly person. that 20 minutes or half hour when I go to bed or wake up, don't touch me. Just leave me alone. Don't touch me. Don't crowd me. It's my bubble. Leave it alone, right? And so we, again, will take that on, and it's like, oh, so-and-so is in charge of my happiness. No, being around you makes me happy, but there are times where no. Right. So taking that on and saying, okay, you're not in charge of my happiness. You're not responsible for my happiness. I am. So when you start to understand that as individuals, that power, like you start to feel powerful and go, well, if I'm in charge and I've created all of this already, if I take that power, but what can I create out of that? Right. And it's taking all that negativity, the angst, the anxiety, the depression, the feeling like you're stuck and alone. It's taking that and transmuting that energy into, what am I going to do about it? Let's like jumping in and starting to figure out, okay, well, what does make me happy?
That's right. Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I think it's that thing, that's always that dance in relationships, isn't it? And especially if we live together, that dance between how do we nourish ourselves as an individual person? How do we, you know, have enough solitude for ourselves? Because I think that is honestly something that is so absolutely underrated. And I think it is also one of the reasons why so many of us feel so disconnected from ourselves and are living unhappy lives, because we're not spending time with ourselves. We're not spending time getting in touch with our inner world. We spend so much time looking outside of us and, you know, thinking about the relationships and managing all of that we rarely forget that everything that happens outside of us is a reflection of what's happening inside of us. So going within is a really important part. And especially within relationships, you know, I found this always a really interesting one, the dance between the two things. And these are often questions that not just come up with my clients, but with my friends and family, you know, in everyday life. How do we balance those two things? How do we integrate having enough time for ourselves as an individual so we can go within, but also, you know, spend enough time with our loved ones and connecting. And that really, you know, and I love that you brought that up before, that it's such an individual journey. What works for us as an individual may not work for the next person. And really just simply embracing that we are all, I know it sounds so corny, but we are all unique. There is not a single person in this world that is like you, Melissa. There's not a single person in this world that is like me. And when we start to understand that on a core level, that gives us a whole new freedom, because we start to give ourselves permission that actually I get to do it my way. And see, here's the thing. Sometimes, and I think this is funny that you brought this up with your husband, because sometimes when we do something for ourselves, it's not necessarily, or when we do something our way, it's not necessarily liked by other people, because it doesn't necessarily match their own values and what they think is the right thing to do. But, you know, I really believe that we can live in a world where everybody and everybody's ways of being can coexist if we allow ourselves to give each other compassion. And, you know, again, you know, like you said, really understand that how I feel or what I am trying to do or what I am doing or not doing is not a reflection of you. And it is nothing for you to, you know, it's not something for you to take personal, because we do take it very personal. We take other people's actions and what they do and what they don't do very, very personal. And, you know, I think for me, the biggest breakthrough was really understanding that, especially in relationships, I'm actually not talking to you, Melissa. I'm talking to my perception of you, and you, Melissa, are talking to the perception of me. So, and that when we really start to understand it, and it's a really huge conversation, but when we really start to understand it, we really get ourselves unstuck in relationships too, because as you said before, we get our power back. And that is such an important part of being able to thrive. If you're feeling powerless, you cannot thrive, because you've just made yourself dependent on the rest of the world and everybody else around you and your circumstance. And that is a very, you know, disempowered way of being. But when we can take charge and when we can feel empowered about ourselves and what we do and where we want to go, then, you know, life feels very different because we're in control. And let's face it, you know, by society, it's, you know, it's bad to be a control freak. It's bad to want to control everything. But the reality is it's part of the human condition, because when we are in control, we feel safe. So the question is, how can we make ourselves feel in control, you know, in the areas of life that we actually do get to control? And then there's some areas that we don't get to control, and finding the balance between the two.
And sometimes compromise. Using my example of, you know, the last half an hour before bed and the first half an hour in the morning, there are days where I do want to snuggle, right? And there's days where I'm just like, you know, if my husband came to me and said, you know, I really just want to snuggle, can we snuggle before bed? I'd be like, absolutely, right? Like, there is that compromise. We do sometimes put ourselves in maybe not an uncomfortable position, but, you know, say, oh, you know, they'd really like this. It's like giving somebody a gift you don't like, right? You still buy the gift and give it to somebody else because they like it, right? We don't have to like the same things to respect and engage in those things. So getting back to getting unstuck, when you are emotionally invested in something, and I think that our emotional awareness and our mental awareness are what really creates our feelings of being stuck. When you are emotionally attached to an outcome or a situation or an event in your life, you will not see the different possibilities in that event, whether they be negative or positive. You're not going to see them. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling alone or out of options, if you remove that emotional outcome and, you know, recenter yourself, as I like to call it, when you center yourself to your kind of like your everyday, all the time, you know, level, centered level, then you're not really up high here in the emotions or really down there in the emotions. And you can start to logically process, right? And when you logically process, you can go, okay, what is actually keeping me stuck? Is there anything actually keeping me stuck? Or is it just me not taking accountability, not taking responsibility, not understanding what my personal power is or what I really want? When you can connect with yourself, connect with your emotions, connect with your individual identity, that's what really gets you unstuck and says, okay, I need this to feel better. I need to do this to thrive. I need to, connect with who I am. And I'm going to do that in nature. I'm going to do that through music. I'm going to do that through whatever that looks like, right? Having half an hour a day or even 10 minutes a day of me time where nobody bothers me, nobody talks to me. I turn off my phone, and I'm just me in that moment. And making sure that you're doing those connected works within yourself to really ask that question. Who am I? What do I want? How do I get it?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I resonate with all of that. And I think it's so true. We spend so much time operating from a space of this is what I should be doing. This is the boxes that I should be ticking. This is what society tells me how I should be living life. This is what, my parents did. And this is what my friends down the road did. And it's working for them. And when we work from that space and when we live life from that space, it doesn't feel great because it's not aligned with what we actually want. And, a good friend once said to me, she reckoned that the hardest thing to do is for you to figure out what you want. And I have to say, figuring out you want is 50% of the work. There's lots of other things that come with that, but really figuring out what is it that we want. Is it actually, so the thing that I want, is that actually what I want, or is it what I believe I should want? And really opening up these conversations. And, I find this so fascinating when I see my clients go through these processes where they realize that actually, I don't really know what I want. And then they go, but I should know what I want. It's like, well, maybe this is a great space to be in. There's actually nothing wrong with not knowing what you want. And then that becomes a space of adventure. That becomes a space of let's try out a few things and see what it feels like. And I like to liken it to kind of going into a clothing store. Some of us go into a clothing store and they beeline for 3 different pieces, which they know they'll love, right? Some of us walk around the clothing store, and I know I've been that person or both of those people in parts of my life, go through a clothing store and go, I might try this one on. I don't know if this is really my thing, but I might try this one over there. That color's fun. Not sure really about the cut, but I'm just going to go and try it on. And I think that's what makes life fun too, when you can allow yourself to browse, to try on some things and make the decision whether you're going to buy it or not. And you don't have to buy it if it doesn't fit with you. If it's not a piece of clothing that you actually feel great in, then you don't have to buy it. But, we don't have to be, so serious about these processes. It's totally cool to try on things and to then decide that they're not for you. And that's part of the adventure of life. And those things can be a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of movie scenes about doing that, right? 2 girls or 2 people go into a store and they try on all the silly clothing and they're having a great time doing it. So let's have more of that great time trying on a few bits and pieces that may or may not be right for us, but we have fun doing it in the process anyway.
So I have the perfect example for that, and it happened yesterday.
I love it.
So I have 7 businesses, and part of that has been I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so going through that process is, what do I like? What do I want to teach? What knowledge do I have? And those 7 businesses have been my babies, right? And so, but the newest one, and you can see, and I'm not doing this on purpose, it just automatically happens. And this is why I wanted to share this story. The look on my face when I tell people about this business, and I haven't fully embraced the fact that I own this business yet. It is insane. And so I ordered some sample products and I got them yesterday. So I bought t-shirts, and so I put one on and I walked around wearing this t-shirt yesterday, and I felt so good. I was just waiting for somebody to see my shirt and comment on it because it's inappropriate. And I was so excited. And the happiness that I radiate when I talk about this business or the things that I've created in this business it's not going to be for everybody. Not everybody is going to like it. Some people are going to be offended. Some people are going to love it. Some people are just going to shake their head and walk away. But I love it. And that's the difference of it, right? Is not everybody's going to like the way that you express yourself. Not everybody's going to like who you are, or what you want, or what you need, or, what makes you unstuck. And that's okay. It's embracing who you are. Like, I'm not out there to offend anybody. So I'm going to show you the shirt that I was wearing yesterday because it's one of my favorite sayings. And it is, do me a favor, shut the F up. So I say this to the people I love the most, right? And they know, and I'm smiling when I say it. It's not meant to offend or anything along those lines, but it's something that I say. And so, like I said, for me walking around yesterday, I felt great and I felt like myself. I felt free. And it was a different experience. Even my kids are like, oh my God, they love it, but they love me talking about it and seeing the look on my face, right? So your family, your friends, while they might not agree with whatever it is that you enjoy doing or being a part of, they love you. And like Sophie said at the beginning of this episode, your people want you to be happy.
Yeah.
And if somebody is not happy with what you're doing or how you're expressing yourself or anything along those lines, that's their perception. That's their perspective. It's an issue with them. If you're not intentionally trying to hurt the ones you love by following your passions, by following your dreams, by embracing your truest self, that's on them. That's not on you.
Yeah, definitely. And I love bringing this. I love the whole full circle thing, but bringing this back to the getting unstuck and what you said before. And you're right. The first step is always awareness, really embracing how we are feeling and really sitting with it, and not escaping from that space. Because when we fully allow ourselves to feel something, to have the full experience of that, that's when as you said, we can really start to think, okay, what's serving me here and what's not serving me here, and really aligning ourselves with that, with that which serves us. And sometimes letting go of the things that don't serve us, it feels painful because, it is something that we've had around, or something that we've done, or a person that we've been with for a really, really long time. And that can be really, really scary. So going through these processes can be super helpful to have people along your side, whether they're coaches, whether they're counselors, whether they're friends, it doesn't matter who you choose as your support person. But, often getting unstuck, involves support. And, I just want to say that I think it's really important to allow yourself to get that support. To get that support for yourself, because you are not alone, and you don't have to do this alone. And sometimes going through these processes feels a little bit scary.
Yeah. There's grief involved in everything, right? There's grief, there's grace, there's forgiveness, there's understanding and awareness. And you hit the nail on the head. It's okay to not follow through with something that you thought you were going to do for the rest of your life or be for the rest of your life. And there is grief in that. When a relationship ends, you're mourning that relationship. When a career path ends, you're mourning that career path, because at one point you loved it. At one point it was something that you wanted, and it's okay to let that go. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we get going?
Yes, there is one thing. We spoke it before about really reconnecting to ourselves. And I'd love for our listeners to be able to really go within themselves, because I think for me, the greatest power as powerful as I felt in my life, the most power I've been able to access is really connecting to my heart, to my soul. And not listening so much to the up here, because this is conditioned. This is something, these thoughts and beliefs that are going through our head, they've been conditioned by how we've grown up, what we thought we needed to do, our environment, society, the messages that we've seen. But what truly aligns with you, what really is your jam, when you feel it in here, that's when you know it's right for you. So I'd love for our viewers to start to be able to really feel what is right for them from their heart space, from this space. And I think a lot of you will know what I mean with that. Not from here. This is how we thrive, by following our heart, following our soul. So allow yourself to do that, because when you do that, you create magic in this world. And you inspire others to do the same, and it makes for a way more loving and connected world. So thank you so much for having me here and being able to have this conversation. It's a really important one.
Absolutely. So remember, everybody, to get unstuck, learn who you are. Learn who you are, what you want. And like I tell my own kids, you figure out what you want by knowing what you don't want. That's one of the greatest ways to figure out what you do want, is by starting with what you don't want, because you've already experienced what you don't want. So take those lessons and run with them. Thank you so much, Sophie, for joining me today. I really appreciated your time and this conversation.
Me too. Thank you, Melissa. Thanks for getting this, having this talk show, having this podcast, and getting these messages and these conversations out there.
Absolutely. That is the whole point. All right. If anyone would be interested in connecting with Sophie, please do. Her links are in the description of this episode. You can reach out, follow her on her social media, get to know what she's all about. Links in the description. If you would like to be a guest speaker on the show, blogger, sponsor, or if you'd like to see a topic featured, please reach out to us at gystalivetv.com. Follow us across our social platforms. Give us some love, share, get involved in the conversation, and start having conversations of your own. That's why the show's titled Giving You Something to Talk About. Lots of love. I will see all of you on the next episode. Bye.